Good evening. At this time, I'd like to call the July 10th meeting of the Caroline County Board of Supervisors to order. We'll start tonight's meeting with our invocation, followed by a moment of silence for Justin Howard, one of our volunteer firefighters that we lost this week, and then follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Black will offer the invocation. Please stand.
Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight with a heavy heart, as we have lost one of our own. Let Justin Howard's smile, friendliness to everyone, and dedication to his community be a goal we all strive for. In your name we pray. Amen. Please pause for a moment of silence.
And now if you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight, before we start our regular our opening board comments, I'm going to take chairman's privilege here, and I'm going to start. I think since our news release, maybe some clarification needs to be done to answer some questions and hopefully shorten our meeting tonight. So there have been some questions and concerns expressed since the announcement that Caroline County has entered into an agreement with the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement Office of Acquisition Management, or commonly known as ICE, to house federal detainees who have allegedly entered the country illegally at the former Pumason Creek Regional Jail facility. The Board of Supervisors believes it is important that Caroline County citizens and other interested parties understand the background and facts surrounding the decision to enter into this agreement. To begin, it is important to understand the unique origin of the facility that will house the detainees. The decision made in 1991 to carve 150 acres out of AP Hill to construct and operate a regional jail was not made or supported by Caroline County. In fact, the Pumason Regional Creek Jail was created because Northern Virginia localities needed space for their steadily increasing jail populations. As a result, they convinced then Senator John Warner to introduce legislation to convey 150 acres at AP Hill to Caroline County for the purpose of operating a regional jail. Caroline County had no needs for additional jail space at the time, and in fact strongly objected to the decision to build a jail on former AP Hill property. County officials at the time were told in no uncertain terms that the jail was coming, whether they wanted it or not, and that they better start thinking about how to make the best of the situation. County officials then began focusing on putting restrictions on the inmate selection criteria and succeeded in excluding violent offenders from the jail. The 150 acres at AP Hill were ultimately deeded to the county by the federal government with the requirement that it be used for a correctional facility. Despite the county's initial concerns, the jail operated successfully for nearly 18 years and proved to be a good neighbor to Caroline County throughout its entire existence. Inmates neither escaped nor were mistreated, and the jail was a source of employment for many Caroline County residents. The other participating jurisdictions eventually decided they no longer had need of the jail and withdrew last June. This left Caroline County alone to decide what to do with the secure detention facility located in the county and capable of housing 336 individuals on the 150 acres. With the regional jail no longer in operation, the major concern for Caroline County became what comes next. Some of the potential future outcomes were clearly not in the best interest of the county or its residents. If the facility was abandoned, would the county lose control over future use of the property? Would the federal government seek to reclaim the facility through condemnation or other means and use it to house hardened criminals, terrorists, or immigration detainees? Would the Commonwealth of Virginia, which provided a portion of the funds to construct and operate the regional jail, petition the federal government to use the facility to house violent offenders of the types previously excluded from the jail by agreement with other localities? The board believes that all of these outcomes were very possible, and any one of them would leave Caroline County with no control over the use of the property and no compensation in return. As a result, Caroline County concluded that the best path forward was to retain the authority structure, at least for the time being, and seek other potential users for the facility on its terms. With the generous approval of the departing localities, the facility was able to remain open with a very limited staff during this interim period by using a portion of the funds left over from the operation of the regional jail. Several potential users, including a regional jail and a state correctional facility in the northeast part of the United States, toured the facility or expressed interest in utilizing it to hold inmates before concluding that it was not feasible to do so. In summary, the agreement with ICE provides several distinct advantages to Caroline County. It removes for at least 5 years the uncertainty of whether the facility will be used by the federal or state government to house hardened criminals or terrorists. It provides sufficient revenue for the county so that can be used for critical capital projects such as fire trucks, ambulances, police cars, school-related projects, road improvements, etc. It provides many county residents with the opportunity for employment at good wages and benefits. Now, County Attorney Ben Emerson will now address criticism that discussions regarding the use of the facility should not have occurred in closed session. Mr. Emerson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With regard to the allegation that discussions should not have occurred in closed meeting, few such meetings were held as most of the work and negotiations were carried out by staff. Closed meetings were needed at a few critical points for legal advice and during contract negotiations for the Board of Supervisors to be apprised of their status and for staff to request guidance on its wishes related to contract terms. The board received legal advice from the county attorney that the closed meetings were permitted by the legal and contract exemptions from the open meeting requirements of the Freedom of Information Act for the limited purposes and discussions that were held in those meetings. My office recently has confirmed to the board that this was and is the case, regardless of the recent allegations being bandied about that it was not permitted. Going into closed meeting to receive legal advice on a legal issue is clearly permitted under the Act. So is going into closed meeting to discuss a contract involving the expenditure of public funds, where discussion in an open meeting could adversely affect the county's negotiating strategy or bargaining position. Both of these conditions were met in the closed meetings for discussion of the contract with ICE. Nowhere does the Act limit the contract exception to open meetings. Nowhere does the Act limit the contract exception to the open meetings to discussion of contracts for the purchase by the county of goods or services, as has been suggested. These words do not even appear in it, nor do the words vendor or seller. The exception is commonly used for such purchase contracts, but it is not limited to them, as is obvious from a plain English reading of the language of the exception. Notwithstanding this, the ICE contract is in fact a contract for services. The services are to be provided by the county, not to it. But once again, this is not a condition mentioned in the Act for the use of the contract exemption. The contract calls for a substantial expenditure of public funds, both federal and county, which the county expects to recoup from ICE, but for which it is still at risk should it have miscalculated the operational capital improvement and ramp-up costs of the facility. Similarly, had those discussions and staff reports on the contract terms being negotiated been held in open meeting, they easily could have become known to ICE, which would have severely hindered the county and adversely affected its interests in the negotiations, perhaps imperiling the entire process. For these reasons, the county chose to have such discussions in closed meeting pursuant to the contract exception to the open meeting requirements of the Act, which expressly permit it.
Thank you, Mr. Emerson. In concluding my opening comments, I hope everyone had a happy 4th of July. I want to say thank you to all that showed up down in Port Royal for the celebrations, and hope you enjoyed your time there. And also acknowledge that I did attend Justin Howard's funeral along with Mr. Black and Mr. Parton, and thank Fire and Rescue and the Sheriff's Department for all the support they gave with traffic control and the honors the fire department gave to Justin. I think his family was very touched. At any age, it's hard to say goodbye, but at 24, it hurts a lot. So we want to keep that family in our thoughts. And then finally, I did attend a Chesapeake Bay Friends of the Rappahannock meeting this morning. It was a beautiful day to be down on the river. And I want to say thank you to those groups for putting that on. This time, any other opening board comments? Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since our last board meeting, we attended the county fair at the end of June. It seemed well attended and a good time was had by all. But I again want to pay tribute to James and Ann Tate for donating the land for the county fair. It wouldn't be a fair if they hadn't given the land there. I attended the Belmont Blast, which was a community get-together organized by the late Irv Comer, the former HOA president, whose idea of the community coming together to get to know each other is one we should all strive for. I'm also going to have a new fiscal year district meeting on the 24th here at 6 p.m. I think I've given Mrs. Hall the details, or she'll get those details. It's pretty much the same as we always do. We'll discuss the new budget, schools, and some new business developments. And lastly, you've heard from the chair and the county attorney regarding the regional jail use. And let me state clearly that I am not in favor of family separation or the zero tolerance policy for asylum seekers of the current administration. I also do not believe that anyone wants totally open borders. I do believe the jail usage is the best of the bad hand the county was dealt, and in no way is an endorsement of the current federal policy. Had the county not done anything, as you've heard, the jail could revert back to the state or the federal government, and any of the non-compatible uses proposed for a minimum security facility would have been a serious danger to the citizens of Caroline County. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Black?
Yes, thank you. I just have a few. First of all, I just want to kind of reiterate what we had talked about with Justin. I got to know Justin when I was running for office back in 2011. Justin was a lifeguard at the community pool. He worked at the food line. Justin was one of those kids you just saw everywhere, and he talked to everyone. I don't think he was kind of in some ways the face of Caroline County Fire and Rescue. He lived it, he drank it, he ate it, he slept it. That was what he loved to do. He loved to serve others. And so it was an honor to know him and have him as part of in his service to Caroline. Finally, I'd like to say one other thing is that Justin was someone who was, he talked to anyone, he was a uniter. And I think in today's society, sometimes we could use someone like that, someone who's a uniter and talks to anyone. So my condolences to the family, and where he's going to be greatly, it's a big loss for Caroline County. And finally, I'd like to say the fair was a huge success considering the amount of rain we had. They dealt with quite a bit, considering, they had people there pulling cars out, and it was a great time, and Justin was there as well. So So that's all, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Seeley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to say that the fair, though it didn't make its attendance that it had the previous year, when you consider that it rained almost every day, the number of folks that came was really tremendous, and Saturday was a great day. I do want to thank the folks that stuck around and pulled people out of the mud. We had a real mud bog going at the end of Friday night. Everybody stayed calm, everybody got helped, and everybody got out of there safe, which I will say, thanks to Bo Norton, who actually had a wrecker there, and to the farmers that brought their big tractors out to push the tow truck out when it was stuck also. I'd like to reiterate that Port Royal Day was absolutely fabulous. I think it gets better every year. The speakers that they had to portray the history of 1776 was actually very, very well done, and I hope that it continues to grow because that has been a very educational event for those that do attend. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Seeley. Mr. Underwood?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have one comment. I know when the board, we voted about the having the RV fair at the Metal Event Park. We thought it would be too much traffic, and we thought it would be, but I went by there last week, and the park was full, and it was really a very nice event. So I would just ask that we continue to support Marlene and the State Fair and the folks at Metal Event Park. They have really met us at every turn. Everything that we've asked them to do, they've done and exceeded our expectation. So that is truly a good business partner, and I want to thank this board for supporting them, and I think you're seeing the results. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood.
And are we going to have a chance to comment regarding the ICE situation?
No, do it now.
Do it now.
Do it now, please.
I'm kind of a person that I don't like to be bullied. I don't like to be pushed around. I don't like to be. I give and take. We fuss and fight up here, and I push back, and I get upset. But what I would ask the citizens is that you voted for the folks that are sitting here to do their best for the county, to do the best for citizens. There are times when we make decisions and we don't have the opportunity to come to you and ask for opinion. There are times when we take the advice of our attorney, our county administrators, and we banter back and forth to make decisions. But when you send a letter to me and tell me you demand that I do something, you got the wrong person. I'm not moving on a demand. You can call me, my number's in the phone book, and you can ask me, well, why did you do this? Well, what was the rationale? And I owe you an explanation. But you do not demand from me. I'm going to be respectful. I'm going to ask you to respect me, respect the vote, but don't demand. I'm not the guy. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood. Mr. Forehand?
Just a couple comments. First, Mr. Justin Howard, I also saw him in and around the community, met him about 7 years ago in the fire station. He was a pleasure to be around. He was a bright spot in the community. He'll be missed by everyone that knew him, including myself, and it's a very sad situation. My deepest condolences to his family. Had the privilege of celebrating the 50th anniversary at Lake Caroline, and it was a large event. They had events going on all day. They had water skiing events, demonstrations. They had tons of vendors. They had, of course, the lake and the pool open, games, Dunkin' booths. It was a quite nice event that capped off with fireworks. So it was a splendid event, and I think we're going to congratulate them later tonight on their resilience over the last 50 years. Lastly, the county fair. Again, I also was a participant with my colleagues. Great event, lots of rain, but they made the best of it. It was a great facility. They've added to it. They will continue to add to it and improve it for all of us to enjoy, and I commend them for that. The mud did help with some of the fundraising car washes later the next weekend that I was also a participant of, and so things work out for a reason. I'll hang my hat on that one. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Forehand. And for any local people who knew that Broadus Street was closed due to a car accident, I want you to know that East Broadus Street is now back open. Just got a text on that. So hopefully everyone will be fine from that. That brings us to amendments to the agenda. I believe we have one, Mr. Underwood.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to add a consent agenda item F. It's a resolution for Miss Madge Beverly, who's 94 years old, who will be named the Mother of Mount Salem Baptist Church on Sunday. We can add that resolution to the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, another one?
Oh, okay. Ms. Forehand, we'll roll it
Thank
into one.
Sorry. I'd like to make an add to the appointments for the Madison District Recreation Committee.
All right. Your
Yes.
appointments.
Yes, ma'am. Miss Jerry Gunn. Jerry Gunn.
Jerry Dunn?
Gunn.
D-U-N-N?
G.
Oh, Gunn.
We'll just put recreation.
Was your appointment up now or expired
Yeah,
last
it's,
month?
I had a resignation midterm.
Right.
All right, so we have a motion to add F under consent agenda for the resolution in honor of Ms. Beverly, and under appointments to add a appointment to the Recreation Committee for the Madison District.
Second, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Moved. All right, that takes us to presentations. Would you like to read the one for Lake Caroline since it's in your district? Our presentation this evening is in recognition of the 50th anniversary of Lake Caroline. Congratulations on a successful community, and that is in Mr. Forehand's district, so we will let him read that resolution, and then we'll get pictures.
A resolution commemorating the 50th anniversary of Lake Caroline community in Caroline County. This day, the 10th of July, 2018. Whereas Lake Caroline has been a very important part of the fabric of Caroline County since its inception on June 28, 1968, and whereas from modest beginnings it has grown to a prosperous 1,400 home community that provides a high quality of life to its residents, and whereas Lake Caroline has provided an avenue for the vibrant growth of Lake Caroline for many years and is an important part of local government tax base, and whereas its residents have contributed greatly to the county's success through their service on boards and commissions, leadership on community projects, and support of local business and institutions. And whereas Lake Caroline is celebrating its 50th anniversary earlier this summer with a number of special activities, including a water ski show. I didn't realize this was going to be in there as well. The Burl commemorative time capsule and a pop-up museum. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Caroline County Board of Supervisors hereby extends a hearty congratulations to Lake Caroline upon the occasion of its 50th anniversary, thanks to its residents for their many contributions to Caroline County, and extends its best wishes for much continued prosperity for the decades to come.
Do we have anyone here this evening from Lake Caroline?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, if you want to, you have something to say, go ahead.
No, it's okay. What did you want?
You want to come up, we'll take a photo?
Sure.
Can you introduce? Well, it sounds like I missed a good time at Lake Caroline. You're going to have a, well, don't wait 25 years. I won't make that one.
Yeah, we expect that every 5 years now, so, no.
All right. Appointments. Does anyone have an appointment to the George Washington Regional Commission Citizens Transportation Group?
Ms.
No, I was just going to say, Madam Chair, we negotiated those the last time, and I didn't know how we were going to negotiate those this time.
It's just one appointment, right?
Right, we have 2 members, but 1 resignation. And
Where was
so-
that?
With 3.
3?
Where was that member
There's
from?
3?
There's 3.
Mine, the person I nominated was the one who resigned.
Okay.
But obviously, there's not enough for each district, so it doesn't really matter.
I thought we had partitioned it into 2, 2, and 2. So last time we did that, yeah, where we did like
All right, well, let's wait.
Mr.
until
Forehand,
we-
myself, and I think Mr. Seeley and you, and then I think Mr. Thomas and Mr. Underwood each came together and picked one.
Is that how you did it?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
so
Mr.
since it
Seeley,
was
do you have
between-
someone? Because I've got nothing.
That's why I was asking. I don't have everybody in mind right now,
All right.
so
More
we
comment?
can talk about that.
There were some rules, if I recall. It had to be a citizen and some other characteristics. Do you remember those? Or?
They used 95 because it was transportation, or the train system.
Yeah.
It was transportation related to Northern Virginia, as I recall.
And I
Right.
have sent a letter to the VDOT, the transportation representative at George Washington Regional Commission, but he's been on vacation, so I haven't gotten a description back. So I'll pass that on to you, Mr. Seeley.
Okay.
And we'll try to come back with something at our next meeting on that.
That's fine.
All right, Mr. Forehand, you have a nomination for the Recreation Committee.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Jerry Gunn, Recreation Committee for the Madison District.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved.
That's all.
All right, that brings us to consent agenda. Any additions or changes to the consent agenda?
I
Hearing
had
none, I have
one, item C I don't understand. Can we pull item C, and I think that's the textbook fund?
No,
No,
that's
that's the insurance fund.
Animal control vehicle.
Yeah.
Oh, it's on the agenda. I don't know why I had that pulled. I'm sorry.
Okay. So
Madam
do I
Chair,
have-
I have some questions for D, if we could pull that. I believe Mr. Fincham might be able to answer those, or someone else.
Okay. So we are going to pull D. Do I have a motion to accept consent agenda A, B, C, E, and F?
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. All right. Approval of VDOT Comprehensive Stormwater Agreement. Mr. Fincham.
Mr. Fincham, I do have questions. I noticed in here they mention roads in Belmont and Belmont West being accepted, but as you know, the issue that we're working on in Milford, that's not addressed in here at all. Is that a separate policy, or can I amend this policy to include them?
This policy is for new roads coming into being accepted into the secondary road system, so that would not apply to your Milford issue.
Okay, well, what leverage do we have before we allow VDOT to accept this procedure without doing anything in Milford? Can we delay this until they do something with Milford, or will this cause other issues?
There is nothing immediately pending. We do have, as was referenced in the memo, Belmont and some other streets that are working their way to the board for resolution to accept them into the state system, but we are not there yet. Now, VDOT's position will be this has to be adopted, or an individual one for each subdivision has to be adopted before they will accept the roads into the secondary road system.
Okay, so we're gonna have to follow the assumption that our quick approval of this will help them move faster in other areas of the county.
Well, again, we don't actually have streets that we're bringing to you even at the next meeting. Townfield was previously approved on an individual agreement just for that subdivision. So you don't have to do anything tonight, but at some point in time, even if we don't have resolution in the Milford streets, you're going to be faced with Belmont and some of the other communities ready to go forward and have their streets accepted.
Okay, in that case, I don't really see any benefit in delaying it, but I think maybe our moving fast will help VDOT understand we'd like to move fast on a lot of other things. All right, thank you, Mr. Fincham. Madam Chair, I'd move unless there are other questions, we could approve D.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Since we're moving along fairly well this evening, I'm going to suggest that we go ahead and move over to new business, 6, 7, and 8. Until we get to about 7 o'clock, we only need about 15 minutes for the closed session, so we may as well keep moving forward. Is that all? All right. So we are going to move to new business, number 6, proposed amendment to fiscal year 2018-19.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
is Ms. Stevens supposed to be here for this, though? I think it says in there, said she would be.
Yeah, she probably would. Do y'all have any questions on what they're doing with that I can answer?
Well, I guess my question on it is, I think it's good that they're trying to buy textbooks, but it doesn't say what textbooks they're buying. It just says history. It doesn't say if it's middle school. It says for history and math. It doesn't say for middle school, high school, that I saw anywhere. And then the other thing, too, they're doing the one-to-one initiative that every kid's going to get a computer. So I was wondering how that fits in. I mean, they were trying to move towards the one-to-one initiative with every student getting a computer. And I just want to know if they were going to do the computer and the textbook. Just a basic question, but to see what their train of thought was.
We can certainly wait for her, but I know that she had told me they were doing, this was an adoption year. So the things that they can spend on for that textbook fund money is books and then sort of resource materials. So some of that stuff is software-based, but I don't think they can actually buy the hardware. I think they're buying that out of technology funds or something for the actual hardware.
We do have I was kind of curious as to why this was here, especially since we do have a joint meeting with them on Thursday. So
I think to get it ordered.
So it's going to be a lot better if they order it on Wednesday than if they order it on Thursday? Friday? Yeah.
I can't speak to that. They didn't know that was going to be on the agenda. She just was getting on the next regular meeting, and the next regular meeting after today was August, and that was too late. I'm not saying Thursday's not, but
yeah. But I mean, with the board's concurrence, we could actually, make a motion to approve this at our joint meeting, and it would only cause them 2 days of a delay. And I think there's a lot of discussion, especially with what Mr. Black brought up, and computers versus textbooks. And she told me the textbook fund comes from that special fund, the $4.6 million that was special money. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions on that. Can we just wait till Thursday?
Unless council sees any reason technically we can, I guess we can, although my feeling is if it's textbook money and theirs, it's their job to spend it. We could ask those questions anyhow and still approve the funds tonight.
My question is, it says it's increasing to 357, 659. What was it before, and where's the increase, and how is that being paid for?
it's rollover money. So you got to remember, a couple of years ago, they didn't even have a textbook fund. I was the one that recommended we create it because the state funds on that line item of textbooks, and it was buried in their operational fund, and I'd always had it in my previous years. Textbooks were textbooks. And part of the reason was because we were getting some complaints that kids didn't have textbooks. And I go, well, we fully fund that every year, so they should have textbooks. And so some of this money is money that's culled out of the fund balance for that textbook, but Mr. Finney has looked at it, and the money is there. It needs to be rolled forward. They didn't spend it all from the 2 years ago through last year, and now we're into this budget year starting July.
Madam Chair, could I Make a motion that
Yes,
we
sir.
table this until our joint meeting on Thursday and add that to that agenda so we can have further discussion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Mr. Moorhead. So we're going to table that. Does anybody have phone numbers? You can go on? Maybe Mr. Finney. All right, number 7, proposed tax contract, Mr. Shebel, for new Lady Smith Solid Waste Convenience Center. Be number 8 under new business.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. This particular item number is to have the board
Number
consider
7.
services with Draper Aiden and Associates to assist the county in evaluating up to 4 possible sites for use as a solid waste convenience center in the Lady Smith area. Replacement of this site has become increasingly urgent and has been identified in the capital improvements program for several years. Draper Aiden, the task contract with them would include actually looking at up to 4 sites and actually laying the site out, which would include 3 waste compactors, 2 recycling compactors, a metal recycling container at a 3-foot dumping height, a brush compactor at a 3-foot dumping height, 2 open tops that would also be a 3-foot dumping height, have office/bathroom, space for fats, oils, and greases, too good to throw away, and storing empty containers. They would look at traffic flow, the layout, look at the actual landscape of the land for stormwater issues and other things. That task contract is $8,400.
I have one question, Madam Chair.
Mr. Seeley.
Have we looked at expanding the site where it's at? Is this included in this?
We did look at the existing site with the small piece of property we have next door, and we've got several issues. One is we do not have enough stacking lanes for the entrance would have to try to be moved to meet VDOT's requirements to be expanded. We now have to meet stormwater requirements and don't have enough land to actually meet all the stormwater requirements that when we purchased the land 12 years ago we could. And then we've also been told we actually have to have bathroom facilities there. We can no longer use porta-johns, so it's going to use additional space. So
We don't have bathroom facilities at the Bowling Green site.
we do,
We do?
yes.
Where are they?
They're in the scale house.
I didn't either.
We have a portage out in Port Royal.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Black.
I just have 2 really quick ones. How long will this take to get the information back?
90 days.
90 days. And then the second thing I saw in here where you said the 500,000. Is it 500,000 or there was a number that was in budget season said that it had gone up to 1.5 million. Is it
That was phase 1 of the multiple year project. So hopefully the start of the project, design of it, purchasing of the land, and maybe starting of construction would be included in that piece. So one of the items that they're going to do is provide a cost estimate of what it would cost to build the site. Once we come up with the different ones and pros and cons of which one of the sites are the better sites to actually build on.
So is this a 3-phase, $500,000 each phase? Is that what you're talking
It's
about?
probably going to fall over 2 budget years, depending on when we actually get it approved and acquire land.
Okay, thank you.
Do I have a motion to proceed?
I'll make a motion that we proceed with the contract with Draper Aiden and Associates for $8,400.
Second.
Yes. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Siebel. Number 8, authorization of the purchase of a Commissioner of Revenue's vehicle, reappropriation of funds for year 2018-19 budget. Mr. Cully.
This is actually rolled over from 2 budgets now. The vehicle was requested when Sharon was still the commissioner, and then rolled into Mr. Bassoon's budget. And when he got there, then he's like, well, I don't think we had budgeted for a sedan, and he felt that he needed some type of 4-wheel drive vehicle, especially getting around Four Winds and some of the places they have to go. The police car we were letting him use was causing him some issues. So that's why we've asked for a pickup truck. It's a Colorado, it's on state contract, so it's a mid-size truck, it's not a full-size truck, but it's four-wheel drive. And he put enough other money that he had saved out of his budget over 2 years that the increase from the original budget amount and savings from 2 other budget years, we have the money and funds to roll over from his department. We plan to use this, and it's an agreement with the Commissioner's Office as a pool vehicle, so anybody in the admin building that needed a vehicle, just sign it out. So if somebody needed to take it somewhere to a meeting or something like that, they could use that instead of their personal vehicle. I know some people, the patrol cars that we use as backup vehicles, people don't like taking them too far out of the county for fear they'll break down. I got somebody going to Culpeper tomorrow to a meeting and really doesn't want to take the patrol vehicle, old patrol vehicle. It's a 2002, so I mean, you know, it runs hard around in the county, but.
Mr. Cully, I'm curious though, why a pickup truck as opposed to a Jeep or something like that?
There's only certain vehicles on state contract, and so they did do some ratings and safety ratings and things like that. So Mr. Bassoon's here could talk to that. He feels like he puts stuff in the back and when they have to take things down to the fair. And so it's a 4-door pickup truck, so it's a mid-sized truck. So the only thing it doesn't have would be an SUV, would be like the really back part. But
I was just wondering why a pickup
Yeah.
truck and not a Jeep if four-wheel drive was an issue in
Mr. Bassoon.
some
He's
areas.
here so he can answer any questions.
Good evening, Board.
Good
Evening, sir.
What I've discovered going down to State Fair and doing some other on-sites, we haul our own tables. Public Utilities will bring stuff to the admin building. We load it, tables, chairs, computers, cones,
Okay.
different things that we take down to the State Fair to rope off our section when we go to pick up our food and beverage and verify vendor licenses. So I thought it would be good to do a smaller truck with a bed opposed to the SUV, and instead of putting seats down and different things.
Okay. I didn't know you were carrying tables and things around. I thought Public Works did that for you.
They bring it to the admin building, and then I've been taking it down in my truck. And before me, Ms. Carter had part-time staff that had pickup trucks and different things, and I've eliminated all that. So.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I
No
have the
problem.
same question, Mr. Thomas. I already found out the answers. But yeah, that was mine. Can I have a motion to approve agenda item 8?
So
authorizing
moved,
the
Mr.
purchase?
Chairman, Madam Chairman.
And I have a second for Mr. Forehand. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Boy, the first time since I become chair, we're done before 7 o'clock. Knock on wood. You want to do capital updates?
certainly.
All right, we're going to move on to capital updates.
Status of capital projects included in your packet. As you can see, we almost complete most of the major projects, other than ones we haven't started, including the things on the utilities. This was the project status as of June 30th. Haven't started anything for the new year yet.
Do we have a, oh, sorry.
On the logistics building, Phase 2, it says that we're at 158% of money spent versus the estimated budget. Is there a reason?
The chief might be able to speak to that. These are the things that they added. We added some things over and above what we did in the original building, some make the space more usable.
I didn't get that, so I'd have to go look at that. But things we did add were the fencing. That added $25,000 to the cost. And we did add heated and cooled space on the second floor, which added some additional costs, so we would have storage up there for files. But that seems a little higher than the budget, so we'll...
Yeah, budget was only 65, and then we're at 102 is what was spent.
Yeah, we were much higher than 65.
If you could,
We can get you a breakdown.
maybe...
We can
give me a
research
breakdown.
that.
Yes, that's
Yeah, I'll
fine.
give you a breakdown.
Thank you, Chief Loftus.
Madam Chair, could I ask one question on that?
Yes,
Mr. Cully, we're doing point-to-point internet equipment,
Yes.
73,000. Doesn't really matter. Can you explain to me what it is and the purpose?
We have radio, what they call air fiber. They're 1 gigabit air fiber radios. One's at the tower in Bowling Green. One is on the water tower here. One is on the water tower at the high school. One's on a tower we put up at Public Utility, Public Works. And one is on the tower at Petro, they call it, but Carmel Church.
Right.
And with that, we have about 785 megabits per second, tying all those things together through any kind of weather, rain. We can turn it up, but we have a little bit of loss of packet if it goes up. And so that gets, they got rid of all the T1s here, two T1s at Mr. Schiebel's office, and ultimately we'll get rid of a T1 at Economic Development, but we don't have a path from the tower into Economic Development yet. We're looking at maybe having to put up a reflector because we don't have a clear line of sight from that tower down to the building. And we tried 900 megahertz, and it was knocking our SCADA system offline. So we can't use 900 megahertz crosstalk. So it'll tie, and ultimately we're going to have, within probably this month, we'll have Comcast gigabit Ethernet feeding in the water tower. It'll be feeding us back this way for the county network at 1 gigabit over instead of 10 over 10 what we currently are.
So for $74,000, we basically tie in all of the county facilities that you've mentioned.
Correct. And turned off T1s at $700 some dollars a month.
Okay, that's nice too. But the point is, that's all on the county's private network?
Correct. It's all private. It's our private network. It's just to replace the T1 private network.
But where I'm going is, for another $75,000, could I duplicate all of that and provide other internet access on a public network?
To a degree. Because remember, to get out to public, you got to drop into a band that'll drop through trees. See, this is point to point up high. Getting down into somebody's house becomes another issue.
But let me make sure I understand now, because I'm going point to point from the county administration building to here.
Correct.
Via air fiber.
Correct.
So if I have anybody in this area, if it were a public network and they had a wireless card, they could attach to that network.
No, because it doesn't run like that. It's point to point. So it hits this tower at Milford, and then I got a radio up there that's hitting this building, and then it's hardwired into this building with a 5 gigahertz signal, or so it's a high signal. And so if you're not in a direct line of sight, if that thing gets out of whack at all, it doesn't work. You got to go out into 900 megahertz to kind of send it out into a more of a wide area wireless pickup. And then trees and everything else start blocking that signal. Plus, with us, I'm sorry for my voice, every tower has that SCADA system on it. So we install the 900 megahertz stuff, it weirds that out. So we don't have an ability at our locations to do that.
All right, what I want us to do is, of course, we've got a lot of rural areas, and, well, anybody outside the town of Bowling Green and those on Route 1 don't really have internet access. So I'm looking for anything that would work, and for $74,000, I thought we'd have a little more access.
You could, but you'd have to put up poles. So you end up having to, you take the point to a big tower somewhere, and then you have to get off onto more telephone poles and spread it all around. That's what those wireless ISPs do. We just got what we put in was a backbone, not last mile. Think of it in that.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I understood, but I was going for something we could use right away. All right, I think at this point we probably just have to talk to the co-op, because they're the only one with poles all over the county. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Anything else?
You got any more calendar items? Don't forget we do have a meeting that we need to recess this meeting to with the school board for Thursday night at 6 p.m. in the EOC. So we need to recess out of this meeting to that. They did confirm today that they have 4 attending. I was told last week they thought they may only have 1 or 2, so that was good news. They met last night, so I guess they committed to 4. We have a VACO Region 7 and 8 meeting at Belmont and Stafford on the 30th of July. Mr. Thomas is announced he's having a meeting here on the 24th. That's at 6. Our next regular meeting is Tuesday the 7th. No, that's National Night Out. Our next regular meeting is Tuesday the 14th. So National Night Out is the first Tuesday, which is the 7th, the week prior to that. And then we have a Vaco County Official Summit on the 16th of August as well. That's 9 a.m. At the Fredericksburg Expo Center. So anybody planning to attend that probably need to get to Pam to send
Do
her
we need to
resume.
RSVP for either of these?
We need to,
Vaco?
I think you need to RSVP for both. And those are the things we have on the calendar so far.
Sheriff Lippett, do you have any information yet on National Night Out? I know I'm jumping ahead of you a few weeks.
As far as I know, Ms. Long, all of them are scheduled for National Night Out. I did hear from one of them that asked for a banner, so we'll be supporting each one of the sites that come in.
Yeah, I hear Port Royal's doing more of a carnival type of thing, and they're going to be there for a while, so they probably fit them in anytime during the day. So it'd be all the same places as last year?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you, Sheriff. We can't. All right, that takes us to closed session. Mr. Forehand.
I move that this board convene in closed meeting pursuant to the negotiation of contract exemptions of Section 2.2-3711A29 of the Code of Virginia to discuss negotiations with a potential expert consultant concerning the valuation of private water systems within the county, where a discussion in open meeting would adversely affect the county's bargaining position or negotiating strategy, and the consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff exemption Section 2.2-3711A8 of the Code of Virginia to discuss specific legal matters related to changes in law related to proffers. Can you get a second, please?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are in closed session.
Be back at 7:30.
You can expect us back by 7:30. Mr. Forehand, would you please bring us out of closed session?
I move that the Caroline County Board of Supervisors certify that, to the best of each board member's knowledge, that only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirement by Virginia law were discussed in closed meeting, to which this certification applies. And only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board. Need a second.
Second.
Mr. Thomas, do you so certify?
I so certify?
All in favor?
Yeah. Aye.
Aye. Mr. Thomas,
I still certify.
thank you. Mr. Platt.
I so certify.
Sealy.
Madam Chair, I so certify.
Mr. Underwood.
I so certify, Madam Chairman.
Mr. Forehand.
I so certify.
And I so certify. We are out of closed session. That brings us at 7:30 to our public comment session. The public comment period is for the purpose of allowing the public to speak to the board on any matter that it's not scheduled as a public hearing. So if it's on for a public hearing, just wait until that time to speak, please. To help conduct the meeting in an orderly and efficient manner, please refrain from clapping and public demonstrations of support or opposition. The public comment period shall not serve as a forum for debate with the board or question and answer period for the board. Remarks should be addressed only to the board, not to the staff, the audience, or the media. All public comments shall be made in a respectful manner. Cursing and mean behavior is prohibited and shall be grounds for removal from the meeting. Comments shall focus on matters of issues before the board or county and not individual board members or staff. Comments which single out individual board members or staff may be ruled out of order by the chair. Each speaker shall clearly state his name or her name, the voting district. There shall be a time limit for each individual speaker of 3 minutes. No speaker shall address the board more than once during public comment period. The county administrator will time the speakers and notify them when their time has expired. And as is tradition, we allow members of Caroline County to speak first, followed by any guests in the audience. So at this time, if you would like to come forward to make a statement on any matter, please come forward.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good
I'm
evening.
Kevin Whiteman from the Bowling Green District. And I just want to comment, first of all, I think your presentation at the opening of the board meeting was good. I'm out and about all day long, and the folks out in my neck of the woods had questions about what we were doing with Pamunkset Regional Jail, and I think there was some disinformation out there. Answering their questions, all of them were in agreement, at least the folks that I talked to, that it was a good use for it, and that the benefit to the county being able to decide what goes in there and how it's controlled, they were thrilled with. So I commend you all in finding a use for that and the way it went down. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on any topic? Take your time.
Thanks for looking out for the disabled veteran. Okay. My name is Michael Johnson, and I live in Lake Landau, 44 Durham Drive, Luther Glen, Virginia, 22546. I'm here representing the ACLU, for which I'm a member. Okay. On June 28, the Caroline County Board of Supervisors entered into a 5-year agreement with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to turn the closed wrap-up, excuse me. Okay. All right, to turn the closed Newmassend Creek Regional Jail into a detention facility to hold the immigrants. The ACLU of Virginia strongly objects to the Caroline County Board of Supervisors recently discussed. We flatly object to the use of local or state facilities in Virginia for this purpose, as well as to the county economic development of justification for the action that enable the zero-tolerance policy of the Trump administration. That policy has resulted in the separation of families and indefinite incarceration of migrants whose only purpose here is seeking a better life. Okay. According to the minutes of the county board meetings, the contract was approved for a series of closed-door discussions and took place over several months. While the legality of these closed-door sessions are still to be determined, it is clear that the board of proposal should be public and not in the dark until the contract is in effect comes to play. Thus, the residents of the county had no opportunity to provide any input on whether they agree that the contract is the best interest of the community. We urge you to hold your elected officials accountable for this action. Well, what the ACLU is saying is basically for me to come here and kind of plead with you to take action and stand for the immigrants instead of for the Homeland Security or the government, because these immigrants did come here seeking asylum after being kicked out of their countries, and these countries include include Honduras, Nicaragua, El Salvador, quite a few. And at the border, I know that myself and a lot of people that watch TV have seen how these young kids were separated from their parents, put in cages, and treated maliciously, and still until now, our officials at the White House and the Supreme Court and the Congress have not been able to see these kids to see how they are being treated, and it's a shame that goes on.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Appreciate your comments. Anyone else that would like to speak at this time, please come forward.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, and members of the Board of Supervisors and others. My name is Valerie Fells. I live in the Reedy Church District. And I had a concern because I found out within the last 2 months that the local people within the Bowling Green District and Milford was getting a newsletter with the Caroline information. I was a regular subscriber to the Caroline Progress, but of course, they went out of business. So I was wondering if it was something that you all could do so that the people in the area code 23069, which is in the Reedy Church District, but we have a Hanover post office box. So I was wondering if you all could see some way that we could get that newsletter. And then since I've been here, I talked to the Freelance
Star. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm looking around the corner here.
Yeah,
That's the person to talk
to. She said she was going to try to give me one because she got my name, but on a whole, I would like for the board to consider the people that live in Caroline County but get their mail from another post office. Because I think that's why maybe we were overlooked in that, but she's going to take care of my problem, hopefully, but that's just me as one, and I'm looking out for my...
Right, and I want to make clear that everybody knows this is a newsletter that's done by the Freelance Star, not by the county. I can't get one because I subscribe to the Freelance Star, and that doesn't sit real well with me either, so...
Okay, but that's what I was here for, so thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
I was wondering why I didn't get one either.
Because you have...
I get the freelance,
Yeah, but if you don't pay them, they'll send you one. You don't get the...
There is somebody trying to start a local paper, so that may be something good.
Thank you. Your name and your residence.
My name is Mark Atkinson. I live in Western Caroline. And I am the son of someone who came here illegally as a child in the early part of the last century. When he became an adult, however, he was given the opportunity to become a citizen, which he did, and I believe that he had a very useful life and contributed a great deal to this country. It makes me very sad and more than a little bit ashamed to see the way that we're treating immigrants at this time. I am morally opposed to these internment camps that we're putting throughout the United States. And I'm deeply ashamed that the Caroline Board did this in such a backroom fashion. There may be legal reason for it, I don't know, but I'm quite sure that if it had been a medical facility that provided abortions, there would have been public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak at this time?
Hello, my name is Tony Harris. I live in the Belmont Division, and I've lived in Caroline County since 2004. For the next 90 days, my wife and I will be surveying the county. We will be spending thousands of dollars to determine is there a market for a hyper-local news media site focused on Caroline County exclusively. Can the market sustain the cost of such media site and its employees? As I look for the answer to that question, I have an early editorial observation that I would like to tender. When my wife and I researched whether it would be worthwhile to purchase the old paper, we quickly discovered that the publication was owned from outside of the state. As we have been ready to ramp up and we have been researching this immigration issue, we have observed organizations like the Richmond ACLU, encourage a narrative about our county. We have also seen reporters from Richmond spin a local issue into a national one. I have seen religious organizations from outside of the county organize demonstrations inside the county. Ms. Uphouse Connor has been a rare, unbiased reporter of the facts with this issue. I just want to reaffirm that I am a Caroline County resident and a landowner. I have 2 little girls who will go to school in Caroline County. I have neighbors in Caroline County that are both Republican and Democrat, conservative and liberal. If there's trouble at my house, I have to call Sheriff Lippa to come and bail me out. As I make that statement, I want to say that the facts are the facts, but let us be brutally honest. Your address and your perspective shape those facts and how you interpret those facts. Maybe it's time for Caroline County, regardless of what you think about this immigration issue, maybe it's time for Caroline County to tell its own story instead of having people from outside the county tell our story for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from Caroline who would like to speak at this time on any issue? Is there anyone else from Caroline County who would like to speak on any issue at this time?
Good evening, everyone. My name is George Spinner, and I live in the Mattaponi District. First, as a former member of the Library Board, I wanted to thank you for that very nice resolution at your last board meeting. I wasn't here to pick mine up, but I've got it, and I was very impressed by it. Thank you. Also, I just wanted to say that I was in support of your decision for the use of the Munson Creek Jail. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else from Caroline who would like to speak at this time?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Ney Hidalgo. We own land at Lake Landor. I want to thank the Board of Supervisors for the opportunity to continue to work here in the county. I work for the Munson Creek Regional Jail, and I work for the Caroline Detention Facility. I have been in corrections for 24 years. One of our missions and one of our core values is to treat people that are incarcerated, in this case detained, with dignity and respect. That has always been our mission, and that continues to be a pillar of who we are at our facility. That's who we will always be. Human beings are human beings regardless of their incarcerated state, regardless where they're at, and that has always been who we are as a facility. We have always been a positive force here in the community, and we will continue to do so, regardless of who we are managing. With that said, I want to thank again the Caroline County Board of Supervisors for allowing us to continue on with this mission. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from Caroline who would like to speak at this time? Anyone else? If not, we'll open the floor up to visitors.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Board of Supervisors. I thank you for welcoming visitors to speak with you. I think you can anticipate why I might be here.
Could you tell where you're from?
Sorry. Jean Pupke. I serve as Senior Minister to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Richmond, Virginia, and I'm speaking with the backing of Unitarian Universalism, and I might be forewarned to you in this particular case. I'm one of those crazy people from Richmond who comes to Caroline County and is delighted every year to be a part of the annual state fair and other activities, and I travel through Caroline County regularly. I'm happy to be here with you again. I just wish to say this. I'm a little concerned, and I understand the urgency for funds and revenues in every county. I know that's a heavy burden on every one of you. I also want to say that many of us are concerned about the lease that you are entering into and would like it not to be the case that there is this lease simply for these reasons. I'm an 11th generation Virginian. Unfortunately, my ancestors caused quite a few problems for other people. Families were broken up regularly and often by my ancestors. for profit. It is something I am trying to set right in my life. And I believe and I love this state of Virginia, and I believe we can change the fact that several times in our history we made the wrong decisions. There are young men whose treatment in a facility in Virginia have been brought into question. I'm happy to hear the corrections officer say the priorities of the detention center, and I trust that all good treatment will be extended to people. But I'm worried that sometimes the opportunity isn't examined in its full moral capacity. I too love my neighbors, Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal. I have found ways to coexist, and I try very hard to compromise when compromise is what we need and call for. I hope you get that paper, by the way. But I want to ask you to please, if there's a space where the contract can be examined, or certainly upon renewal, why are we putting young people into jails? I hope one day we'll see a generation that includes the dreamers active in our country and recognizing their dreams. I hope the young children we have coming forward will not be incarcerated or subject to any adverse childhood experience. And I know you have challenges, so I will just note this. I thank you. I hope you don't think we're all out of our minds in Richmond. We love our Virginia Commonwealth, and we take it seriously. So please, in your considerations, allow that to be part of your deliberations.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
Hope you're well. My name is Marvin Gilliam, and I currently serve as the pastor of Mount Onai Baptist Church, which is located on Dry Bridge Road in the Reedy District. I am coming and speaking today as a concerned faith leader regarding this decision about the Munson Creek Regional Jail as a detention center for illegal immigrants. I'm very disappointed and disheartened that by the fact that the county is now essentially an accessory to injustice in my view. While this agreement is certainly legal, I would caution the board that just because a thing is legally correct, it does not make it morally just. And as we have seen in the past 2 years of the Trump administration, moral justice is not something that has been championed. Emma Lazarus' words surround the base of the Statue of Liberty, and they say, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shores. Send these, the homeless tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." And in fact, in 2018, the southern border of our country is now the new Ellis Island. And there are people that are seeking asylum in this country, seeking to better the lives of their children, better the lives of their families. And even in the Christian faith, we are taught that we ought to be hospitable to the immigrant and to the stranger in our lands. In Matthew 25, Jesus teaches us that we will be judged based on how we treat the least of these, saying, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, for I was a stranger and you invited me in." We are not judged on talking about treating people right, but we are judged on actually doing it. As the news has reported regarding this decision, I'm glad that no children will be held at the regional jail, but similarly, there may be parents who have been separated, perhaps permanently, from their children that will be housed here in Caroline County. And I believe this is an injustice. And I recognize that any chance to bolster the financial status of Caroline County and to provide jobs for county residents is important, and it looks good on the surface. But I'm imploring you today to look beyond the surface, beyond the money, to the morality of the issue. I recognize that many in our communities are struggling. I serve many of them in my congregation. But the question at hand is, what is the moral cost of what is the moral cost to this perceived financial, whatever perceived financial benefits there are? I'm not sure that this deal is worth its weight in gold. In short, I'm calling for the board to pull out of this deal or not renew this deal when it comes back up for renewal as a repudiation of our national crisis that we're facing, of the policies of the current administration, and calling for the board particularly to ensure that when issues like this come up, that it's done in an open forum, that the public is given a chance to speak, especially in really controversial issues before the decision is made and not after. I recognize that you are in a difficult position.
Could you please wrap up?
Yes.
Your time limits up. Thank you.
I recognize that you're in a difficult position in having to balance morality and the state of Caroline County. And I think in this case, I'm challenging you and asking you to reconsider your decision moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
My name is Steve Rapson, and I live in Fredericksburg. And I'll be brief.
Thank you.
That the board closed its meetings to the public and could only have been to prevent citizen input to their decision, to your decision, to bring an ICE prison to Caroline County. The excuse that closed meetings were held only because a contract was being negotiated is pure deception and a gross violation of democracy.
Thank you. Next.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Brian Sutherland, and although I'm not a member of a community here in Caroline County, I have been employed by the Plumbus Creek Regional Jail for the last 14 years. And I was part of the, the group that was asked to leave after 14 years, the 108 staff members that were asked to leave to no fault of their own. And so I just want to say to the board, thank you for providing another alternative method for me personally to take care of my 6 children as a single father, raising them by myself. It's been very difficult, actually. This is my 23rd year in corrections, and it was very difficult for me to find a position throughout the state that was at the same level that I was in at Plumbus Creek. But as I was able to find employment, it was part-time employment. And as I traveled all across the state in my new role in a correctional environment, you would be surprised to how many facilities and facilitators that I spoke to all across the state that knew about what was going on within Caroline County, knew about Plumbus Creek Regional Jail attempting to be reopened and what it was to be used for. And I received nothing but absolute great comments from these staff members and other facilities, other agencies across the state that would make comments such as they couldn't have created a better environment than Plumbus Creek Regional Jail because it's the best jail in the state of Virginia. And so to me, as a former employee there and now going back to work again there, I take great pride in those comments, and I take great gratitude in the fact that you guys were able to keep it open, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Hi, come on up. I know I hate getting out of those chairs too.
Good evening. My name is Jen Coolidge, and I reside in Spotsylvania County, Fredericksburg. And I, like many of the clergy that are here, I'm very concerned about the decision to bring this type of facility into Caroline County. You know, we have a duty as Americans to set the standard as to what is right. I don't believe that this is the right decision, and I know that money is hard. But talking about money, according to the Fredericksburg.com article that was published on the 3rd of July, Caroline County is looking to make about $27,600 per day for a 5-year contract that comes to $50 million. That's a lot of money. Given what it is, that's pretty accurate. I did the math. I also went back and looked at your budgets from previous years. So it's about 10% increase over your budget from previous years, which is great. And like everyone else in this room, we know that money is tight. But let me just say this. You're charged with doing the right thing here. We're raising children in this country by leading by example, and this is not leading by example. So let's talk for a second about what is actually happening at our southern border. You have our Border Patrol denying access to people who have been traveling for months to come into this country legally, and being blocked at the checkpoints and denied access. Go back. There's no room here today. Well, you're talking about children. And someone made a comment, well, you know, we're separating families at this point. So as a former Republican, I find that abhorrent. Now, I'm not going to get up here and preach to you all because I think you've had enough preaching at, but I want all of you to go home tonight. And I want you to look in the mirror, and I want you to look at the person that you see. And I want you to think about this. This is a quote from the parliamentarian Edmund Burke. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men and women to do nothing. What we are seeing in this Trump administration is the destruction of democracy as we know it. We are better than this as Americans, and I would charge all of you to take a long, hard, cold look at yourself in the mirror when you go home, because we are better than this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Seeing no one else, public comment session is now closed. What? Oh.
You want to correct the
Yes,
50
Mr.
million?
McCulley, did you have a comment? The board?
You've looked at the revenue the federal government's paying the county to run the facility. You haven't counted what it costs to run the facility. So the county's not making that kind of money. It's an expense to the county to run the facility for the employees, the light bill. So I just wanted to add that's not make sure the paper understands that. We certainly can. I'm not going to do it from here without figures in front of me, but the revenue that's in the contract runs the facility. There is a revenue to the county, but it's a small percentage of what the total over is. It's been sent to the paper.
This is not a time for discussion. We were just trying to correct a fact, and you can contact the newspaper. All right, that brings us to public hearings. Our first public hearing tonight is Langford, Kevin and Teresa.
Madam Chair, members of the board, your first public hearing tonight is SPEX 03-2018. Kevin and Teresa Langford, owner and applicant, requesting a special exception permit in accordance with Article 17, Section 13, and Article 4, Section 5.14 of the Caroline County zoning ordinance on a portion of tax map 42-A24. Requesting a special exception permit on 1 acre of land for a major home occupation. The applicant is requesting approval of the special exception permit for a major home occupation permit for excavating business pursuant to Article 4, Section 5.14 of the zoning ordinance. A major home occupation is defined as an occupation conducted in a dwelling unit with or without the use of one or more accessory structures for profit in connection with there are employed not more than 5 persons other than members of the immediate family member. The applicant currently conducts the business at their home on Page Road under a minor home occupation permit. The company now has outgrown that home occupation permit and requires the reclassification to a major home occupation, which requires this use permit by the board. The reason for the change is that the applicant employs 2 individuals who are not immediate family members as part of their contracting operation, necessitating the upgrade to the special exception permit. Primary purpose of the contracting company is to provide repairs to utilities for individual homeowners, as well as they provide emergency services to communities and to individual residences. As previously stated, the applicant has 2 outside employees which are not members of the immediate family. The general hours of operation are 6:30 a.m. to 5 p.m., although occasionally the company is called out after hours due to emergency work that they are called to perform. Sewage disposal is currently provided by a temporary portable waste facility supplied by local services. The board, one of the questions that was raised at the Planning Commission was whether they could continue to use the temporary privy or whether a connection to the drain field would be required. The Health Department has opined that that would be a county issue. They have no problems with the temporary privy. So under Section 9 or Article 92 of the County Code, we need to make a decision whether it's appropriate to, whether the use of that temporary facility is in fact temporary, or whether the board desires the applicant to connect to their drain field. VDOT raised the issue about the potential need to upgrade the entrance to a light or medium duty entrance. Staff advised the Planning Commission that based upon the existing use, we did not think it was appropriate to upgrade or to require an upgrade to the entrance at this time, but the future expansion, that might very well be a recommendation of staff. The Planning Commission did forward this request to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation of approval, subject to the 10 conditions that are outlined in your staff report. And with that, I'll address any questions that the board may have.
Gentlemen, have any questions?
Mr. Fincham, is the front parcel associated with the applicant in any way?
No, sir, a separate parcel. They have an easement through that parcel.
Doesn't look like the easement follows the driveway that's there. Just a curiosity there.
Anyone else have a question?
Easements across.
Well, we're hooking up things over there. I know I stopped on Page Road and visited with Langford's while I was out campaigning, and it wasn't until I pulled down the driveway that I could tell there was even a business in the back. The place was neat and clean. The house was, lawn was nice, and unless you really looked, you couldn't see. So as long as you can't see the, sorry, public hearing. Okay. Here I go again. I'm skipping the public hearing part. But anyhow, we will move forward. If nobody else has any questions, then we're going to go ahead with public hearing. So, all right, at this time, we're going to open public hearing, SPEX 03-2018. Anyone like to speak on this issue? Would anyone like to speak concerning this issue? Anyone like to speak on this issue? Seeing no comments, the public hearing is closed. Are those the Langfords back there? Are they here? I thought so.
Yes.
Okay. All right. As I said, as long as everything stays screened, and that is one of the conditions, I have no problem with this.
I have one question.
Mr. Seeley.
Mr. Fincham, did we add to the ordinance that all taxes had to be up to date to get a special exception?
I'm sorry, repeat your question.
Did we add to the ordinance, because we talked about it a couple of years ago, that all taxes had to be up to date to get a special exception?
We did that on rezonings. This is not a rezoning,
So it's not on special exception?
not on special exceptions, just rezonings, I believe, was the language that we adopted.
Mr. Black, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just, we might want to bring that up, actually, for special exceptions as well in the future, if we're going to be doing it for rezonings. But my question is, I was looking at the Planning Commission minutes. There was a question that didn't seem to be addressed in regards to the outhouse.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Is that, I know there was a neighbor that spoke. He actually lives in my district, but there was a neighbor that spoke, and he has said that he had concerns about how it looked. Has that been addressed?
We put a condition in, we recommended a condition that required that the equipment be screened from view of abutting properties and a public right-of-way. There's also a requirement for a site plan. You have a sketch plan in your packet, but there is a condition that would require a site plan as well, which would be a more detailed plan, which we can address all that with the site plan to make sure that it's adequately screened.
Okay, that's my only, that's it, thank you.
Mr. Fincham, this may be a question, just a moment, Mr. Underwood, I'll get right to you. I've got a question if you don't mind. I just wanted to make sure all the equipment is registered in Caroline County? Okay, that was my question. Mr. Underwood.
Madam Chair, I just had a concern that we're looking at the special exception 03218, but we're discussing other issues not relevant to this special exception. I think we should just look at, and based on its merit, we make the decision. If there's something else we need to consider, then we need to consider that. But I think we just stick to what's before us, and then if we need to have another meeting to discuss doing something different with special exceptions, then I think we discuss it at that time. But right now, this is what's before us. My only question is there any plan at any time to do something different with the porta-john or hooking up to a system, or is this going to be long-term? I guess that's my only question. Is there any plan to?
I think the board can address that issue specifically with a condition if you so desire.
Can I ask the applicant if they have a plan to do that at any time, Mr. Langford? How are you, sir?
Fine, thank you. As of right now, unless the county makes us do something different, the porta-john is very seldom even used because, we're on the jobs every day. Sometime in the winter months when we're around the shop and someone needs to use the porta-john, yes, they do. Local does come at least once a week to clean it, even though it's not being used. And that is certainly not visible from the road, nor is the equipment or even the shop. It's visible from Page Road also.
That was my only question.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Langford, sorry, I couldn't get to my mic fast enough.
Yes, sir.
If you were to grow your non-family member employment to a dozen.
Never happened.
Times are good.
Yes, sir.
I'm considering putting a condition, if you get to 12, you have to put it in a septic system.
Okay. Yeah, I would never work 12
I
hours.
don't, perhaps that's not appropriate, Mr. Fincham.
Mr. Forehand, by ordinance, he can only go up to 5 outside employees, which would then require...
For the major business.
For this, yes, sir.
Okay.
After that, it would be a separate classification.
Smooth then. Okay, thank you. Makes that discussion very easy.
Right. And Mr. Langford, I would recommend you might want to consider looking into some of the new facilities that are available, biodegradable. There's I was talking to someone in Mr. Fincham's office. What could they do other than hook up to a drain field? And he said they could help you with that. There are all sorts, apparently, of facilities that you could put inside that don't require plumbing.
Yes, ma'am.
So you might want to look at that. It's awfully cold to be going out there in the wintertime around Virginia.
Yes, ma'am. I will get with Mr. Fincham on that.
Right.
He does have an excavator and can dig a very large hole.
You have no idea how cold it is at night. I know.
Go ahead, Clay.
I'll make a motion that we accept the special exception with the 10 conditions listed.
I'll second.
Okay.
Any discussion? Mr. Seeley? No?
I'm just,
I see the light go on, so a way I have to know if you want to speak. Nope. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? So moved. Thank you. Good luck with your expansion. Our second public hearing tonight is the proposed amendment for Section 93.1 of the Code of Caroline County, Schedule of Water and Sewer Fees. Mr. Shebel.
Good evening again.
Good evening.
This public hearing is to discuss possible amendments to Section 93.1 of the Code of Caroline pertaining to the schedule of water and sewer fees. The proposed adjustments of water and sewer availability fees and connection fees. It is proposed that our water availability fees be reduced from $8,000 to $5,000. Our sewer availability fees go from $8,500 to $6,000. And our connection fees actually would go up by $250 apiece from $750 to $1,000.
Mr. Shebel, you might want to, I'll just point out that's a typo on our first page. If you all were looking at that where it says 6,500, that was a typo because I called and asked about that. That should be 6,000.
For a total connection for availability and connection fees of $13,000. Proposed establishment of a capital reserve fee for the Caroline Pines water system of $20.24 per month. That will be kept into a separate fund and used exclusively for repairs and maintenance in the Caroline Pines water system. There's also a proposed establishment of a water use rate and base fee for the newly acquired Port Royal Townfield water system of $40. Additionally, we have recommended the elimination of a 6-inch water meter. A 6-inch water meter can flow 1 million gallons a month without any issues. And because of that, the availability fees that were currently in the schedule would not cover the cost to be able to provide those services. So we've removed those so that the board would have the ability to negotiate fees in the future. We've also adjusted the nonprofit availability fee based on the proposed new water and sewer availability fee. With that, I'll be willing to answer any questions that the board may have.
Gentlemen, do you have any questions, or are we discussing on the slide?
one question. So this is only for water and sewer, nothing else?
Correct.
And only for residential?
With the exception of your nonprofit, we adjusted the nonprofit fees for availability fees based on the residential connection. So all your commercial fees will stay the same. This is strictly dealing with availability fees and connection fees for residential and nonprofits. So nonprofits would be any of the meter sizes. It also includes the two fees, one for Caroline Pines and the fee for Port Royal Townfield.
And the commercial fees before were the $8,000 to $8,500, correct?
If you were to connect with a 3/4 inch meter, that is correct.
Okay.
Mr. Shebel, can I ask a quick question, just to make sure, for those who don't have the charts and schedules in front of us, you list 1-inch meter, for instance, I'm looking at the nonprofit. 1-inch meter is $6,000 and sewer $7,200, but at the end you have a multiplier that says 1.6.
That would be above the multiplier. Basically, you take your rate from the previous rate and you multiply that by 1.6. So your 3,750 times 1.6 gives you your 6,000. Your 6,000 times 2 gives you 12, so on and so forth.
So that's all you're just saying. The multiplier is not anything you'll multiply on.
No, it
people's
just
things.
establishes the rate based on
It's just how you can see
AWWA
the-
standards,
how
what
you
that
can
meter
see the
can
rate.
flow. Yeah, so it basically 1.6, and really that one's not the best one to use because
Well,
it
2
was
is kind of
calculated
easy.
different. It is, but AWWA, if you look at your traditional rates for commercial, the 1.6, if you look at a 3/4 inch to a 1 inch, it can flow 1.6 times more, so you use that. The difference between 1.5 inches and 2 inches is actually 2 times the flow, even though you're only going up a 1/2 inch.
Okay. So you just, the multiplier is just a descriptor of how fast the water is flowing, which allows people to understand why the rates are different based on that meter size.
Correct.
Okay. That's all I want to make sure, because we're going to, I'm sure, publish all these on our website, and somebody's going to say, what's the multiplier, and you might want to put a little...
We actually published the Understanding Your Water and Sewer Utility Bill that goes through all that in detail and explains what each fee is and how it's set up, and we'll update that.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because we're not looking at it, or other folks who will watch this won't be looking at it. Just want to make sure. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Shebel? All right, we're going to open this public hearing then. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this issue? Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this issue? Anyone that wants to speak? Public hearing is now closed. Gentlemen, do I have a motion or discussion?
I'll make a motion, we accept the new rates as defined.
What will be the effective date? Because I think that should be in the motion.
Mr. Shebel, when would you like a date on this? When are we starting with the new
If you do
systems?
immediately, any availability fees would take effect for tomorrow. So if a new house was being built tomorrow and they came in, as far as the rates for Caroline Pines and the Port Royal system, August 1st would be the official date of taking over the one system, when we need a rate in place by then.
And if someone's already pulled a building permit, it's as long as they haven't connected?
No, it's when they apply for the actual connection.
Okay.
So if there's one we were speaking about earlier that has not applied yet, that would get the newer rate.
I do have one question.
All right, just a moment. On the date, you have to have the date in place before you can send out the first charges on the new systems. So does it matter if we set them now? You're not going to bill them.
Yeah, we wouldn't bill today.
So we could do it all tonight. It's not going to affect
It
anything.
won't affect anything other than if somebody were to apply for a new connection tomorrow, it would be the new rate.
Okay, but as far as billing goes,
It wouldn't affect billing either way.
The ordinance has an effective date of August 1 written into it. You could change it.
I don't remember seeing
For the fees and schedules.
I did not remember seeing August 1.
But Mr. Shebel said he needed it before August 1.
I have
because he's
one
gotta get the
question,
bills
Madam
out.
Chair.
All right. Will you all work on that?
August 1 will be fine.
It will work? Okay. All right, that's what I
I'd
wanted
like to
make
amend my
sure.
motion to include an effective date of August 1st, 2018.
All right, Mr.
Second.
All right, Mr. Silly.
How does this affect,
Wouldn't apply till then. Yeah, but we're 15 days away, unless you wanted to take effect now. I mean, it's,
For the availability fees, why wouldn't you just make those effective immediately and everything else August 1st?
we can.
Can we let Mr. Seelig get his question answered, then we'll amend the motion, because we might have to amend it again.
how will this affect Brookwood since it's on the Bowling Green system?
It's actually part of this includes all Caroline County connections, so they would be affected by this. So they would see a reduction in their rates.
But they do have an additional amount coming.
$2,500.
Okay.
2,500 for additional was coming for that particular subdivision.
Okay.
I would like to amend my motion a second time to include that the lower rates be effective immediately, and that other fees and adjustments, connection fees,
Immediate.
I'm sorry, the connection fees are effective immediately, and the other availability and capital fees for the Caroline Pond system take place effective August 1st.
I will amend my second and
Port
second
Roll and-
motion.
We need the Port Roll system in there. Yeah.
And we include the Port Royal, all three systems listed, changes take effect August 1st.
That got it? Ben, you happy? All right. Lawyer's
And I
happy?
second it.
We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shebel, for all your work. That got it? Could I have a motion to recess? Oh, do we have any closing board comments?
I do have one, I'm sorry, Madam
Yes,
Chair.
Mr. Thomas.
I should have known, but I need to yield to Mrs. Hall's wisdom. I think you're right, Mrs. Hall. I'm supposed to start at 7 and not 6 for the constituent meeting in a couple of weeks. So I think we did start at 7 before, and I don't want to break that tradition. And gives people a little chance to get home. So Mrs. Hall is right. I'm wrong.
Yep.
Thank you.
Not surprised. Thank you for clarifying that. Any other closing board comments, Mr.
Yeah,
Underwood?
Madam Chair, I called VDOT regarding, we had all the rain, the roads were flooding, and many of the citizens were complaining about the VDOT not pulling the ditches, and it hasn't occurred for a number of years. And I was told that we're going to have to get individual citizens to complain. I called and made the complaint, but they said they're going to have individual citizens complain about the ditches flooding and needed to be pulled. So I think we need to, I'm not sure how we can notify citizens of the county roads, but that's the only way they're going to do them, stop them from flooding, to make sure we have drainage, so we don't have puddling on the roads.
All right, that's good to know, and maybe at our constituent meetings, we can pass
Yes.
that along. Any other closing board meetings, comments at this time? Hearing none, may I have a motion to recess until July 12th at 6 p.m. at the EOC building?
I'll second.
I'll make the motion. Now you can second.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Thank you all.